Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something fundamental, the changing rhythm of the aging brain. We're looking at some key insights from research called the rhythm of age, cognitive processing slowdown. And our mission here really is crucial if you interact with older adults. We want to unpack the science behind why things might slow down a bit, and importantly, help distinguish this natural change from what often gets misinterpreted, things like apathy or distraction. We're aiming for genuinely actual insights for you.
Exactly. We're starting with that feeling, that core frustration some seniors experience where it feels like the world is just moving too fast. We're talking about cognitive processing slowdown. It's that disconnect when the brain's ability to take in info, figure it out, and respond starts to lag just a bit behind everything happening around them.
Yeah, and the source material gives us a really vivid picture with this example of Mr. Greene. He's at family dinner, right?
Yeah.
And the conversation is just buzzing, flying back and forth. He described feeling like he couldn't quite catch a word, or maybe the whole point just sort of dissolved before he could piece it together. And later, watching TV, it was the same thing. Overlapping voices, those flashing headlines. It just became genuinely overwhelming for him. He wasn't being difficult. He just sighed and said, "It's just too much noise. I can't keep up." And that feeling, that frustration, that's the signal, isn't it?
It absolutely is. That's the crux of it. And let's look at what's happening underneath that feeling. It's actually physical. As we age, the speed our brain processes information naturally decreases a bit. It's not the connections failing, they still work fine, but the time it takes for those neural signals to organize and deliver a response, that just lengthens slightly. Think of it like a highway where the speed limit's been lowered just a touch. Still gets you there, just a little slower.
Okay, that makes scientific sense. But I think the big question for families, for listeners, is always, does this mean they're losing their intelligence, their sharpness? So let's be really clear, based on the source. This slowdown is about tempo, right? It's not necessarily about a decline in intelligence or their ability to pay attention.
Wow.
How critical is that difference?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. That distinction is everything. The intelligence, the knowledge base, that's all still there. It's intact. What changes is the rate, the speed at which they can access and use that knowledge, especially when things are happening quickly or there's pressure. The material describes it well. Tasks needing quick decisions or juggling multiple things or following complex conversation. It can feel like sprinting uphill.
Right.
And when the environment outpaces the brain's comfortable rhythm, the result isn't necessarily confusion. It's often stress, just plain stress.
Right, that makes sense. So let's connect that internal feeling, that stress, to the things we might actually see on the outside. Because those are the signals, the behaviors we need to recognize. You might see someone pulling back a bit in group chats, especially when lots of people are talking at once, or maybe showing frustration during fast discussions. Those longer pauses before answering a question become more noticeable. And sometimes, maybe a bit of resistance to picking up new technology or following instructions if they're given too quickly.
And what's really interesting and maybe a bit counterintuitive is how we usually interpret those things, the withdrawal, the pause. We often jump to thinking it's disinterest, apathy, but the sources really challenge us to flip that perspective. What looks like tuning out might actually be a communication of need. It's the brain basically saying, hang on, please slow down just a bit so I can stay with you.
Seeing it as communication. Or even self-preservation, as you mentioned. That's a powerful reframe.
Yeah.
So when a senior steps back from a conversation or seems disengaged, it's not rudeness. It's more like the brain trying to find some calm, some predictability, because it feels overloaded by the world's speed.
Exactly. It's a defensive move, really, to keep things stable inside when the outside feels too chaotic.
Okay, so the goal then for us caregivers, family, friends, isn't to push harder or get frustrated ourselves.
Right.
It's about bridging that gap, adjusting our speed, how we structure things, not just talking louder.
Right.
Because that doesn't help the timing issue.
No, not at all. Increasing volume often just adds to that noise Mr. Greene talked about. It can make it even more stressful, actually. It doesn't fix the underlying processing time lag.
So if the environment is the key, the thing we can control, what does the source material suggest? What are the practical adjustments? They laid out a toolkit, which sounds really helpful.
They did, yeah. A really practical set of strategies. And the first one is absolutely foundational. Pause before repeating. Simple, but hard to do sometimes. If you ask something and there's silence, Remember that silence isn't empty. It's active brain work happening. You really need to allow those extra few seconds for processing. If you jump back in too quickly with the same question or rephrasing it,
You interrupt their thought process?
exactly, you interrupt their internal rhythm and they basically have to start over. So patience with the pause is key.
Okay, pause first. Got it. And the next one. This feels important for maintaining dignity. Simplify without infantilizing. It's about making things easier to process, not talking down to someone.
Precisely. It's about reducing the cognitive load. Breaking instructions down into clear single steps is the way to go.
They give a great example, don't they? Like getting ready to go out.
Instead of rattling off a whole sequence like, okay, get ready, we need to go to the store soon, so take your meds first and then grab your jacket. Just like 3 or 4 steps at once.
Yeah, that's a lot to track.
Right, you simplify it. You'd say, okay, first let's take your medication. Pause, let that happen.
Then?
Great, now let's get your jacket. One clear task at a time, much more manageable.
Makes total sense. What's next in the toolkit?
Strategy 3 is pretty straightforward, but honestly, often missed. Reduce competing stimuli. This is all about minimizing background noise. Turn off the TV, mute the radio, try to have just one person speaking at a time, trying to filter speech from background noise or follow multiple conversations. It just makes the processing exponentially harder. Clear the airwaves, basically.
Okay, less noise. Strategy 4 moves into using other senses, right? Use visual anchors.
Yeah, leverage sight, pair what you're saying with a visual cue. This could be anything, really. A simple gesture, pointing towards the bathroom if you're talking about getting ready, or maybe using a written note for a reminder, or even just making sure things in their space are clearly labeled. It helps connect the verbal instruction to a concrete thing or action.
Good tip. And the next one sounds more about the emotional side of things. Validate, don't correct.
This one's huge for keeping communication positive. If there is a long pause, or maybe they lose their train of thought, resist the urge to jump in and correct or push them. Instead, offer reassurance. Something simple like, take your time, or it's okay, I'm not in a hurry.
Ah, so it removes that pressure, that feeling of being rushed.
Exactly. It lowers the stress and encourages them to stay engaged rather than withdraw because they feel like they're holding things up.
Right. And the last strategy.
Number 6, encourage predictable routines. Familiarity is your friend here. Repetition significantly lowers the cognitive effort needed for everyday tasks. When the daily schedule and environment are predictable, the brain doesn't have to constantly work to figure out what's next. That frees up mental energy for more meaningful things like conversation and connection.
That whole toolkit feels very grounded, and you mentioned research backs this up.
It does. The source material points to a specific study from 2023 published in Neuropsychology of Aging and Behavior.
And what was the key finding there? Something about cause and effect.
Yes, what they found was pretty compelling. Processing speed decline was identified as one of the earliest and most reliable cognitive changes linked directly to environmental stress in older adults. It wasn't just correlation, the stress seemed to exacerbate the slowdown.
Wow, okay. So the environment directly impacts processing speed.
Yeah.
Did they test ways to help?
They did. That was the crucial next step. The study showed that participants' cognitive functioning and well-being actually improved, measurably improved, when their caregivers consciously slowed down their communication pace and made an effort to reduce those competing stimuli we talked about.
So the interventions worked. It wasn't just theory.
Right. The intervention made a difference.
Which really drives home the conclusion. The tempo of the environment has a fundamental impact on behavioral stability. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? From seeing it as just an internal problem to seeing it as a mismatch between the person and their surroundings. A mismatch we can actually do something about.
Absolutely. It reframes the entire issue. And naturally, talking about cognitive changes brings up concerns. The source material addresses a very common question listeners might have. Is this kind of slowdown automatically an early sign of dementia?
And the answer is?
The answer is not necessarily. It's really important to make that distinction. Many older adults experience this natural slowing in processing time without any associated memory loss or the kind of disorientation we associate with dementia.
So it's more about the timing, the bandwidth, rather than the core cognitive machinery breaking down.
Exactly. It reflects changes in timing and how the brain manages its resources, not necessarily a disease process affecting the core structure of memory or reasoning.
Which leads us, I think, to the big aha. moment from all this?
Yeah, the core takeaway, perhaps. We really shouldn't view this slowing down as, a failure or something going wrong. It's actually a remarkable form of cognitive adaptation. The brain is intelligently finding a new, maybe slower, but more sustainable rhythm to keep functioning effectively in the world.
Adaptation, not decline. I like that. And it brings us back to Mr. Greene, doesn't it? His quietness, his withdrawal. It wasn't him losing interest in his family. It was, in a way, a smart protective strategy to keep his world from feeling overwhelming, to keep it manageable.
Precisely.
And that connection, that understanding, it can replace the confusion or frustration we might feel. It happens the moment we choose to meet the person at their pace. It really highlights that compassion isn't always about doing more or trying harder. Sometimes, maybe often, it's simply about moving a little slower, together, making communication feel human again.
Well said. And, this research, while focused on aging, it has implications for all of us, really. It speaks to how any brain functions under the stress of too much information too fast. So if environmental tempo really does influence our behavioral stability, our mental energy, it prompts a final thought for you, for everyone listening. What subtle, maybe unnoticed, rushed moments exist in your own daily life? Where is the tempo eroding your mental energy? And thinking about these strategies, what small adjustments could you make to bring back a little bit of that essential calm and predictability for yourself?
That's a powerful thought to carry forward. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, really exploring the rhythm of age. We hope this helps you find a calmer, more connected pace in your own interactions.